Hi everyone, welcome to GV Face, our weekly video hangout series. Today we are talking with Oiwan Lam, our China and East Asia editor at Global Voices, who is based in Hong Kong. And Oiwan is going to tell us about the citizen-led referendum on voting rights that has taken place over the last several days in Hong Kong. This is a really fascinating example of activism and political organizing around a fundamental issue of voting rights, and it has actually led to, or been sort of related to, massive protests that have been happening there over the last couple of days. My name is Ellery Biddle, and I am the editor of Global Voices Advocacy Project, and glad to be here. Oiwan, welcome to GV Face.
Hi.
So, can you tell us, I wanted to start by understanding a little bit about how voting works in Hong Kong and how are government representatives and the chief executive chosen, and how does that process relate to mainland China?
For the chief executive, it's chosen by an election committee, which is composed of about 1,200 people. And the election committee is a kind of product of indirect election, but not every individual have the rights because it represents some sectoral interests. So, for example, housewives, they don't have the rights to vote for their representative. Youth, they don't have the rights to vote. And then for the industrial, commercial sector, the votes are company vote, not even individuals. So the voting system of election committee is very chaotic and is very manipulative. That's why the chief executive does not have the endorsement from the people, and it doesn't have the legitimacy to rule Hong Kong. We had a joke saying that he only got 689 votes in the election committee, which means only 689 people endorse him. I didn't endorse him, so it's very difficult for him to rule. And all the major government officials are appointed by him. And also the executive council members are appointed by him. So you can see that the whole government, the administrative body, do not have any people's endorsement. Yeah. As for the legislative council, half of the members are from direct election, which means I have the rights to vote for one representative. But they are divided into the geographical area. So I can vote for the representative in my district. Yeah, in my near my residential district, but the direct elected member, they only constitute like half of the electoral. So, and the other half of the electoral member, they are the so-called functional constituents. It's similar to the electoral committee. They are also representing the sectoral interests, and then some of the electoral member, they are voted by company or organization, not by individuals. Only the professional groups, they had individual voting right for the functional constituency representative. So it turns out that whenever the administrative body or the government, they want to propose some new legislation, they will manage to pass it because they had the majority vote in the electoral. So for the oppositional, if they want to oppose, for example, a bill or a developmental plan, they have to use different symbolic actions to stop or to express their opposition. So, like sometimes they will throw things at the government official, or sometimes they will a kind of foot dragging for the bill. Like they raise a lot of questions, like more than 1,000 questions, in order to kind of making the legislation process slow down. Yeah. So the relation between the administrative body and electrical is completely, yeah,
Wow.
fall apart. Mm.
So yeah, I mean it's fascinating to think about sort of how that results in just a really strange imbalance of power, but then also, like you're saying, in order to voice political opposition, people really have to, it sounds like they have to be pretty creative.
Yeah, they have to bring this the slogan into the legislative council. And just a month ago, some protesters they tried to occupy the legislative council. They rush into the building and then they try to stop the committee from passing the budget of a developmental plan. So there was some confrontation between the protester and the police.
And so then what happened? Were they arrested or just taken out?
Many of the activists were arrested in that incident.
Mm.
Yeah. And
Well,
it
wow.
happened more and more frequently. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's great to have that background because the amount of planning and careful thought about how to do advocacy or activism that really carries a lot of power that went into this civil referendum is it's a lot. Like it just seems like so much sort of work and planning went into it. Can you explain to us just like the basic picture of what is a civil referendum? You know, people have been talking about it, but when I first saw this, I thought like I don't think I know what that is. And then as it turned out, it was this truly citizen-led, not government-sanctioned or organized voting event. Just tell us, like, how did they plan this? What was you said it took, what, 2 years?
Yeah, because according to the new timeline for the universal suffrage, for the political reform for universal suffrage is 2017 and 2018. Yeah, so the
So
chief
the government has promised that there will be universal voting rights.
Because it has been deferring and deferring. At first, the timeline was in 2004 and 5, 2004 and 5, and then it was deferred to 2011 and 12. Then it deferred again to 2017, and yeah. So so the government had to come up with a political proposal for the election reform. But the Beijing government, it is quite clear that they don't want to abolish the functional constituents of the legislative council. And then they also want to keep the election committee of the chief executive, but change it into the nomination committee, which means the very undemocratic committee, they will manipulate the nomination process. So what else can we do to stop such kind of undemocratic political reform? So that is the very big question and challenge for Hong Kong. Because in the past, we tried to stop the political reform, and then we tried to persuade the Hong Kong government and also the Beijing government to accept a more democratic mechanism, but we failed. Yeah. So the big question for Hong Kong is, how are we going to persuade the Beijing government? So 2 years ago, there's this Hong Kong U Law professor. He are kind of saying that we have no other choice. We had to retreat to Civil Disobedience Act. So the idea of Occupy Central comes out, and it was kind of well received by the civil society, saying that, okay, let's have massive Civil Disobedience Act to push the Beijing government for a very genuine election reform and universal suffrage mechanism. But in the process, we also need to come up with a kind of civil society proposal. I mean, we need to put forward a counter proposal. So what do we mean by genuine universal suffrage? And so we need a kind of mechanism or process for the civil society to have a consensus. And then for the last 2 years, the Occupy Central Committee, they held more than a few hundred meetings with the civil society, different sector, worker organization, women's organization, youth organization, university, professional groups. Yeah, so they had this deliberation meeting with different sector, and then they come up with the idea that we need a kind of citizen nomination mechanism rather than the election committee, the nomination committee mechanism. So the civic referendums last month is to consolidate the consensus by putting together, by asking people to choose among 3 proposals. So one is putting forward by a pan-democratic alliance, one is put forward by a student or coalition, and then one by a radical democratic parties. But actually the 3 proposals are similar because they all incorporate the idea of citizen nomination mechanism. So eventually, the pan-democratic coalition won, had most of the vote. So now we had the kind of civic proposal. So whenever the government put forward a very concrete plan for the political reform, then there will be another round of referendums for the voter to choose between the two, the government and the civic proposal. If the civic proposal wins, then and the government refuses to accept, then we will have the massive civil disobedience act of occupying Central. Yeah, so that's how the civic referendum comes into being.
Well, so, and tell us, I mean, I know that there were months and months of preparation, and I mean, you said that they met with hundreds of civic groups and individuals to try to plan the process and to develop the proposals. Tell us about the days when the referendum took place. How did people vote, and how many people?
It took place.
How many people?
Initially, it was planned in June 22nd. And 21st and 22nd, 2 days only. But then because of that hacker incident, yeah, the system, the voting system was hacked by a massive DDoS attack. So the committee decided to extend the voting period for a week. So it was between June 21st to June 29th. Yeah, and apart from electronic vote, people can also go to a physical booth to cast their. Yeah.
And how many people participated?
About 800,000 people. At first, the committee, they only expect 300,000 people. Yeah, but the turnout rate was like more than double of their expectation. So people were really concerned about their voting rights.
And what kinds of people I mean, that's a huge number, so I imagine it wasn't just sort of young, politically engaged people. What kinds of, were there older people from different parts of Hong Kong, different economic groups? What was the sort of breakdown there?
Because the most moderate proposal won. I mean, the proposal that put forward by the Pan Democrats won, which means the middle class came out the most. Yeah, and also for the voting, because it's built on a trust mechanism that you need to be a legitimate voter. I mean, above 18 years old, and also you're a Hong Kong resident with Hong Kong ID card. You need to key in the Hong Kong ID card. Yeah, so they all of the voters, they are ID card carrier, and yeah, and I think the majority of them, they are middle class.
Okay. So
and also they have access to IT, because like there's this data, like more than 70%, I think, I forgot the exact figure. More than 70% they are voted by mobile phone apps, which means they download from the App Store, and then they vote by their mobiles, which means they at least they have the money for their mobile, and then they can go online, and they have the information about the apps. So I think that tells something about their background.
Yeah, and it also indicates that people knew about this. You know, I mean, I'm amazed by the, you know, we talk a lot about like clicktivism, or how it's kind of sometimes almost too easy to voice some political support for something through the internet. But this is a more active thing to do, and it seems like with all of the questions about technology, and with these major DDoS attacks that happened right before the referendum was supposed to happen, I mean, do you think people were at all nervous about voting electronically, or nervous about, I mean, their own privacy in doing that?
Yeah, there were some rumors saying that the hacker will steal our record, and then they will know who are the oppositional individuals, and then that kind of rumors, they are kind of trying to dissuade people from voting. So like if you are working for the government, like civil servants, you will be hesitate to vote. Yeah.
Sure.
Because, your ID might be leaked to the hacker, or the government agents. Yeah. So I think some individuals, they are threatened by this kind of rumor. Yeah. But for those who decided to vote, it seems that they are kind of fearless, feeling that, well, it's the moment for us to come out, and then we should not be afraid of the political threat or harassment. So it also indicates a kind of courage of those individuals who decided to stand out, or to go against all this political threat.
So what's happening now? I mean, this was a much bigger kind of event and success, I would say, than even the organizers had hoped for. And we've been seeing reports all over the news over the last 3 days of these massive protests in Hong Kong, and also reports that, like what you wrote about yesterday, about it was hundreds of protesters arrested. Can you explain the kind of the relationship between these things, and just tell us a little bit about that?
The protest, it happens annually during July 1st. It's the date for to kind of celebrate the handover of Hong Kong to China. So usually in the morning, the government, they have their ceremony, saying that, oh, it's the date for unification. But in the afternoon, citizens, they will protest or they will take part in the rally to express their discontent about the government. So the tradition has been there since 1997. The biggest
Sorry.
the biggest rally happened in 2003 and 2004 when the government at that time they tried to push through the kind of national security law, which will kind of threaten our freedoms to expression and to press. Yeah, so at that time also 500,000 people came out, and then we stopped the legislation in 2000. So the July 1st rally is very symbolic in Hong Kong. It kind of indicates people's power and people's determination to stop something or to push for change. This year also 500,000 people came out. Yeah, so it is a very huge event. It means and then this year the theme is about political reform. About genuine democracy, citizen nomination. Yeah, so it seems that for the civil society, they are very determined. Yeah, and then after the protests, the student activists they kind of they put up this rehearsal for Occupy Central because the government and also the pro-Beijing groups they have been kind of saying that the Occupy Central actions, they will destroy Hong Kong. It will lead to violence, and then it will kind of ruin Hong Kong economy, etc., etc. There is a lot of threat about the Occupy Central action. So the student they wants to demonstrate how civil disobedience acts can be peaceful, determined, and also effective. Like so, they occupied one of the major street in Central, and then it ends. The police arrested more than 500 people. Yeah, in the process, and they are still arresting people. Yeah, even.
And are those people still being held, or have they been released?
No, most of them they were released. But they had some record in the police, and then some of them they will be officially prosecuted. Yeah, so because students are doing that, yeah, it means that they are willing to exchange their future career for the future of Hong Kong. Because if you have criminal record, it means that your choice, your future choice of career will be limited. Yeah, so their action really show their determination. Yeah, yeah. So it is a very touching and also impressive action and campaign. And then it kind of indicate that if the massive mobilization, I mean, if the real Occupy Central happened, more people will join in because they had already demonstrated how it can be done. Yeah.
So we have one question from Robert J. who asks, what do you think people in Hong Kong are really determined to do? How far are they willing to go to sort of to carry out this vision? And I guess that maybe that could be sort of our concluding question. What do you think is going to happen in the coming weeks and months, and where do you see the movement kind of going, depending on how the government kind of responds to the events of the last few weeks?
I think if the government proposal does not incorporate the idea of citizen nominations, then there will be this massive civil disobedience act. I think more than at least 5,000 people will participate, and which means they will be arrested and prosecuted. And then the kind of struggle will not end there because it's a very symbolic act. it means that there will be a very long-term battle between the civil society and the government about the election mechanism in the future. And then the kind of battle will not, may take in another form, like civil disobedience acts in everyday life. Yeah, like, yeah, and yeah, it can. I mean, the massive Occupy Central act is more symbolic, but the long-term struggle will be, yeah, will be the real battlefield, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for explaining all of these complex, kind of different systems to us, and for doing such diligent work in covering this story and making it kind of accessible to this much wider interested audience around the world, Oiwan. I just really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's very complicated.
I know, but it's, you know, that's why we have you. Well, thanks so much, and thank you everyone for watching. Please keep up with Oiwan's reporting on this issue that will surely kind of continue to evolve and unfold in the coming months and probably years. And please don't forget to join us next week for GV Face. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Good night.